Okay, perfect. So thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Zoom, everyone. And just before I introduce our presenter, I'm going to let you know that, first of all, welcome to Des Moines Public Library's Zoom programming. My name is Rebecca. I'm one of the librarians here at Des Moines Public Library. And we are so happy to offer this to you this evening. This program is being recorded. Mics are off, videos are off except for the presenters. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I'll be keeping an eye on it throughout. So if you have any questions for our presenter, we will get them to them there. And without further ado, I would love to introduce to you Tova Brandt, who is a museum professional with expertise in history, immigration, and ethnic studies. She has recently been appointed executive director for the Museum of Danish America in Elkhorn, Iowa. Prior to that position, she was the museum's Albert Ravenholt Curator of Danish American Culture, responsible for exhibitions and programs. From 2001 to 2009, she was a curator for, I'm going to say it wrong, Vesterheim Norwegian American Museum in Decorah, Iowa. She earned a bachelor's degree in history from Bryn Mawr College and a master's degree in early American culture from the University of Delaware's Winherther program. And with that, let's all give a Zoom snap to Tova.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to join you all wherever you might be here this evening. And I hope we can enjoy a Hygge evening together. So give you a couple moments to do your own Hygge checklist. Do you have a suitable, enjoyable beverage? Are you wearing your fuzzy slippers? And are you in a comfy chair? These are all very important. I'm going to share some slides, and we'll kind of explore this funny word that's just popped up so many ways in our society lately. So let me share screen here, and we'll get that going. And okay, so Hygge. This is the topic tonight. And if we were gathering together, say 5 or 6 years ago, chances are good that really none of us would have heard this word. It is a Danish term. And about 3 or 4 years ago, there was a flood of books and articles in the English-speaking world all about this Danish term, Hygge. And everything seemed to be written with the assumption that we would be happier and less stressed out if we could all just be better at Hygge. So tonight we're going to dig deeper into Hygge and see if there are lessons that we can apply to our own lives. And is Hygge really what we all need more of now? First of all, how do you pronounce this word? I do not speak Danish. I am certainly not a native speaker. So the closest I can come is Hygge. If you say Hygge, you're close enough, really. That will be fine. And to turn the noun Hygge into an adjective, you just add li to the end. So hyggelig. So there we go. That's your Danish lesson for tonight. Hygge is usually described as impossible to translate. It lies somewhere in the midst of all of these terms I've listed here on the screen. You can find Hygge in a group of people, and you can also find Hygge by yourself. In some ways, it's one of those you know it when you see it phenomenon. So as we discuss some specific examples this evening, hopefully you'll just kind of get the idea through different examples. Now, there are similar terms in other languages, and some of these might be familiar to you. So, you know, I can start pronouncing some of these, Kuschelig, Gemütlichkeit, and then I'm just going to give up on the rest of them. These all kind of have very similar meanings, similar, you know, evocations of kind of how they're used in their cultures. So why is it that Hygge has become this international trend and the others haven't? other than it's shorter and hard to believe, easier to pronounce than many of these, I would argue. One of the things about Hygge is that it plays a much larger role in Danish language and conversation than those other terms from other cultures. Hygge can be combined with other words. It can be a noun, it can be a verb or an adjective, and it is a frequent topic of conversation. A friend might ask you on Monday, would you like to come over for Hygge on Friday? And then on Friday, you will all enjoy the Hygge. And then the next time you see that friend, you will compliment each other on how hyggelig last Friday was. And I have heard Danes have this conversation to each other. It is a frequent, just typical dialogue. So let's take a look at some examples. Some version of this photo is in just about every Hygge book ever published. It's two people wearing slippers and comfy flannels, drinking warm beverages in front of a fireplace. So let's unpack all of these hallmarks of Hygge. First of all, the fireplace. The fireplace provides warmth, beauty, and a passive focus of attention. It is easy to zen out looking at a fireplace, and your companion won't get upset with you if you are looking at the fireplace instead of looking into their eyes. You know, it's a socially acceptable, focus of your attention. And indeed, sitting in front of a fireplace taps into a very ancestral instinct among humans. For thousands of generations, we have gathered around the fire for companionship, for safety, for warmth, for food, and we still all resonate to those very basic needs. Next in this picture, fuzzy slippers and flannels. If you look at this photo, we assume that it is winter outside. So being outdoors would mean cold and probably wet with snow or rain. So in this case, part of the Hygge comes from the contrast. Warm, dry feet, easy to wear flannels instead of layers of winter gear, and also the comfort of knowing that you are protected from the elements. Final big Hygge clue in this photo, the warm beverages. Sure, we all need nutrition and hydration. These are basic fundamental needs. But food and drink mean so much more in human society. Nearly every act of hospitality involves the sharing of food and drink. We become equal participants when we share the same meal, and it encourages social exchange among equals. So the act of preparing tea or coffee or hot chocolate for another person is an act of generosity, of caregiving, which is why even though I personally do not care for coffee, if I'm in a scenario where someone has already made it and offers it to me, I will accept it and drink it with as much cream and sugar as I can get away with, because it's part of that social exchange and responding to an act of generosity. So here's another Hyggelig setting, very different style in this photo. Instead of a fireplace, we have candles. And some scholars have explored the parallels between how candles create a similar focus within a social group. The warm glow of candlelight can soften the edges of an interior space, like think around a dining table. And just as we can gaze into a fire, it is socially acceptable to gaze toward the candlelight in the middle of a group of people. And it is almost impossible to overstate how important candles are to Danes and to their environment. And I'll return to this a little later. The furniture in this picture is recognizably Scandinavian mid-century modern design, which is a style known for its successful balance of form and function. In other words, it is beautiful to look at and comfortable to sit in. So we've got comfortable seating, candles lit, places to set down a beverage or a snack, And this is a space that could be Hygge for one person reading a book, or Hygge for two people enjoying a chat with each other. And here's Hygge in public. We can see some of the same elements in this, not too fancy restaurant. You notice candles are on the table, this shared experience of food and drink. And most importantly, we see a group of people who are interacting with each other and enjoying the moment. And that's another key part of achieving Hygge, being present in the moment, participating equally in creating the sense of shared experience. We've all seen tables at restaurants where it seems like everyone sitting there is looking at their own phones, and no one is talking to each other. That's basically the opposite of Hygge. A Hygge gathering really expects that everyone present is equally engaged and equally part of creating that shared experience. And an interesting point about Danish restaurants is how they enable Hygge. They will never in a Danish restaurant hurry you to finish a meal. It's expected that if you eat out with friends, that's going to be a 2 to 3 hour event. And lingering over coffee and conversation is totally expected. Here's a setting for solo Hygge, with apologies for the photo quality. But here you can make out this comfy space tucked into the nook here, a view out the window, room for a book or maybe some knitting, and you could probably even take a nap here quite comfortably. In an alcove like this again is about the aspect of Hygge that is a contrast to the outside. In this case, the nook represents a retreat from the daily chores of life, and a space where that retreat and enjoying that retreat is recognized and encouraged. And one more thing about this space, natural materials. Like much of Scandinavian design, an emphasis on natural materials, that could be wood or wool, leather or stone, that makes a tactile connection between the indoors and the natural world. Speaking of natural materials, let's spend some time on wool. This is a good season to talk about wool. Natural materials could also include linen and cotton, but for classic Hygge, especially in this season, wool is the way to go. Warm and cozy is the key here, and giving ourselves permission to relax in the moment rather than stay literally buttoned up and starchly proper. If we dig a little deeper into woolen wear, one could add even more layers of Hygge if these socks and sweaters were hand knit. The act and craft of making something by hand can itself be a Hygge experience. There is a mindfulness to handwork, as well as a tactile satisfaction of creating something yourself. As a knitter myself, I confess, I am totally biased here, but I think one can make an argument that an awareness of materials, of quality, and of craftsmanship add to the sense of Hygge, whether it's in the sweater you're wearing or the furniture you're sitting on. So are there props that can help create Hygge? Yeah, sort of. There are certainly things that can help set the stage for Hygge. They're not going to do it on their own. The people are the ones who create the Hygge, but these can maybe help. So candles, I promised to discuss these in more detail. Denmark burns more candles per capita than any country in Europe, roughly 13 pounds of candle wax per Dane per year. When asked what they most associate with Hygge, 85% of Danes mention candles. Over 75% of Danes light candles at least once a week. 28% light candles every day. And when they light candles, over 50% of Danes will light 4 or more candles at a time. This puts my family and our single dining room table candle to shame. Here's another tidbit I loved learning. The word for spoil sport in Danish is lyselykker, the one who puts out the candles. So candles are super important, and in general, Danes use white, unscented candles. It's really about the glow of the light. Another hyggelig accessory can be flowers. They can be simple, beautiful, and flowers are something, fresh flowers are meant to be appreciated in the moment. They represent a lot of what hygge is. And it's important to remember that hygge can be experienced in any season of the year. So you can just grab a handful of what's in bloom outside your door, in your garden, put them in a jar or a vase or whatever, and just enjoy that natural beauty of the season for the moment in which it is at its peak. When we look at furnishings, frankly, Danish modern design is out of reach for most of us. It is really pricey, but a sheepskin throw or a wool blanket or throw pillows or any of those little details that make a place a little more enjoyable to sit for a while, those can all help set the stage for hygge. So what do you actually do to find hygge? The answer is whatever makes you feel content and connected to the moment. I mentioned I'm a knitter, and here's the proof. That's me. Reading a book is also a classic hyggelig activity, especially with a good book. You know, when you lose yourself in a good book, you are experiencing that connection with the world inside the pages, and it removes you from the distractions and worry of the day. So that losing yourself in that moment in a good book is definitely an example of hygge. But hygge is also hospitality and shared experience. Some classic hygge moments for groups would be a family game night or a dinner party with friends. Now, we can't ignore the fact that planning and executing a dinner party takes quite a lot of work and often a certain level of stress. And that doesn't sound very hygge, does it? Similarly, think about planning for a family holiday gathering, which I'm sure is on a lot of our minds as we look towards the coming season. There's travel logistics, meal planning, preparing places for everyone to sleep, and that's even a normal year. This year, things are just even more complicated. So it's a lot of work. The hygge comes in when the preparations are done, when everyone gathers, and the experience of being together can be enjoyed by everyone. And so just as the hygge of the fireplace is emphasized by the contrast to the winter weather outside, the hygge of the holidays is in contrast to the work of the preparation leading up to it. And sometimes those of us who are hosting those events need to remember we have to be sure to enjoy the events as well. And it is good to remember that hygge is possible in all seasons. As we head into winter, hygge may be at the front of our minds. This is arguably when we need hygge the most. But that sense of connection, shared experience, joy in the moment, that can happen all year round. For me, the great summer example is when you're grilling outside and it's a beautiful night and you just find yourself hanging out in the backyard until you realize that the fireflies have come out. Like, that's a hyggelig summer evening. So I encourage you to take a moment and think about where you are sitting. And like, what are the hygge things that you have incorporated into your own space? I have my cozy beverage. I confess, I don't have my fuzzy slippers on because I'm still at my office. But I really look forward to my fuzzy slippers when I get home this evening. And all of these little things that make you a little more mindful, a little more enjoying of the moment. Those are all things that we do for ourselves that create hygge. There are critiques of hygge and arguably a darker side to hygge. If you are planning to invite people to Hygge on a Friday evening, who will you invite? Probably your established friends, right? People with whom you're already comfortable with whom you're already shared Hygge in the past, so that you're confident that you will achieve that Hygge that you want to enjoy. So for newcomers to Denmark or to a city or to a workplace, it can be hard to break into a social circle. Many newcomers to Denmark describe a high level of social isolation in their first year or two until they are known enough by others to be welcomed into a group. And consider how many aspects of Hygge rely on a shared cultural expectation, all those unwritten rules of hospitality that can be different among people of different backgrounds. Do you offer to take your shoes off when you walk into someone's house, or do you not? Do you bring a gift, or do you not? Do you arrive a little earlier or a little later than the appointed time, or straight on the dot? All of those things that can cause that little bit of stress and unknown. It's hard to overcome those and really achieve the Hygge that that people want. Other critiques. There's been so much attention to Hygge and so many of these advice books telling you the ways to achieve it, so that you wonder, is Hygge really attainable for everyone? What if you can't afford that sheepskin throw? What if you lack the physical mobility to facilitate a dinner party? What if you can't afford to go to a restaurant, which restaurants are notoriously expensive in Denmark? And what if you don't even have a home of your own or a safe space to create that sense of security and contentment? It makes me wonder if the Danes have become so skilled at Hygge because they enjoy the benefits of Denmark's cradle-to-grave social welfare. As a society, they have low rates of poverty because of government benefits for education and healthcare and unemployment. They are known for a much healthier life-work balance, which is measured in average vacation days taken per year, number of hours worked per year, and in national family leave policies. So, do Danes really have the secret to happiness? Is this combination of kind of social policy and cultural values of Hygge the another way of saying the good life? Even with those critiques, are there lessons that we can all apply in our daily life, and find a little bit more of that magic? There are some simple ways to achieve Hygge. You don't need fancy porcelain to serve tea or coffee, or even to spend $5 for a pumpkin spice latte at a coffee shop. The act of gathering and with others and sharing that moment, that's what creates the Hygge. It's not where you are or what you're drinking or what it's being served in. And another thing to remember is the savoring what's in season. If you ignore the blue and white porcelain, concentrate on the strawberries. If it's strawberry season, enjoy the strawberries. If it's apple season, enjoy the apples. If you have a neighbor with a raspberry patch running amok, go ask if you can pick some raspberries, and enjoy what is there at its peak that won't last forever. I still highly recommend candles, but it is the candle light that is most important, not the actual composition or size of the candle itself. The flame on a tea light or a simple votive is just as compelling as the flame on an expensive beeswax pillar candle. And flowers, too, are such a simple way to celebrate seasonal changes with whatever is in bloom. Whether it's something that you pick from your yard or beg from a neighbor, it's what is there, what celebrates the season. But again, these tangible objects just set the stage for Hygge. They are not necessary, nor will they create Hygge by themselves. Hygge is a state of being, and it's a state of being with others. So I want to thank you for sharing some Hygge thoughts with me this evening. I know it is not the same as being able to gather together in the same room. We are all making do and finding Hygge substitutes where we're able to. But I hope that in having a conversation and spending some time thinking about some of these ideas of Hygge, that that you can be inspired to bring some new ideas into your own daily environment or routine. Just a little bit more about the Museum of Danish America, where we consider ourselves Hygge experts. We are in Elkhorn, Iowa, which is halfway between Des Moines and Omaha. So it's just over an hour west of West Des Moines. And we are currently open. We're open 3 days a week, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday from 11 to 4. Our design store is open and open online at our website. So we've got a lot of great things. If you want some of those extra Danish touches to create your Hygge environment, we can help you out. We've also got some of those Hygge books that propose specific strategies on achieving Hygge. We currently have a really beautiful exhibition, a temporary exhibition on display about the Danish porcelain from the Art Nouveau period. Over 100 works are on view. We just opened this earlier this month at the beginning of October, and it will be on view through the holidays. So if you have a chance to plan a trip to Elkhorn, we would absolutely love to see you and welcome you to explore some more Hygge details with us. We'll go back to our range of faces, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that might be on your mind. I'm glad to look at the chat box and see the affirmations that there are mugs of teas and hot chocolate and blankets, you know, that you're enjoying the moment. That's excellent. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. If you have a question, go ahead and throw that in the chat. How did Hygge come to the U.S.?
How did Hygge come to the U.S.? Well, some of the Danish Americans, of course, you know, we're already familiar with this. It's probably more of a 20th century, second half of the 20th century development in Danish culture. Hygge came to the U.S. actually by way of Great Britain in terms of the publications of it and the new attention to it. I think it was first British publications that really highlighted and wanted to further explore this this concept, this Danish concept. So it kind of spread west, you know, to hit the U.S. You've suddenly found it being reflected in clothing retailers, you know, highlighting, you know, really thick, cozy sweaters, and this it kind of became a real trend, an aesthetic trend in the retail market. But there's, you know, the Danes, you know, find it kind of amusing that all of a sudden the rest of the world is is so fascinated by Hygge, when for them it's kind of second nature. It's something that they don't need to explain to each other. So the fact that now everyone is wanting them to explain Hygge is a little disconcerting for a lot of Danes.
Yeah. Another question is, how might the U.S. better emulate the positive aspects of Hygge?
I think that's a really good question. You know, and I think when I think about Hygge and American society, probably the most important lessons that I think Americans could learn from it is that idea of giving yourself permission to enjoy the moment. And you know, I think so many of us live very busy, very programmed schedules, and to be able to have some more unprogrammed time to let Hygge happen a little bit more organically, that can be challenging when you've got a checklist of things to do and errands to run and places to take your family members and all those things. To give ourselves permission to stop and just say, it's a beautiful afternoon and we're just going to go for a walk in the park. You know, that's sometimes I think really challenging for, you know, for Americans, and that's probably an aspect of Hygge that that we could really benefit from.
Cool. We have one question here that I think is pretty interesting and probably relevant to me. How do you Hygge with an open floor plan where the kitchen, dining space, and living room have no division to be cozy?
So there are architectural challenges. I think, you know, coziness can be defined not necessarily in the larger environmental sense, but even in, you know, where are you sitting in that space? And within that open floor plan, have you created, you know, a conversational group so that people still feel that you're in a comfortable proximity to each other, you know, to see and hear easily, to, you know, to have, you know, a furniture setting just on its own. You don't need a wall to create cozy. The cozy really comes in the immediate environment of what you're sitting on, where you're resting on, what you feel with your hands and with your back, even with your feet. Is there a fuzzy rug to rest your feet on? That's super cozy. So I think it's about the furnishings that human characters are physically interacting with, and not so much about the larger architecture.
Okay, we also have another question about, are there any magazines specific to Hygge? This patron loves the Bella Grace magazine.
I'm not aware that anyone has claimed that as a title or a mantra. So I'm gonna have to refer you to a good periodicals librarian, I think, to to see kind of in the current, you know, in the current space of, you know, lifestyle magazines, what, you know, what might be there. I'm not personally familiar with any. But then I'm not very familiar with magazines, so I'm not the expert to ask.
The only one that comes to mind offhand is a British magazine, Happyful, which we do have at DMPL, should you want to check that out. And we have a question from Megan. Do you have any book titles for us to continue exploring?
The book title that I found most useful, and that some of the actual statistics that I shared came from that book, is called The Little Book of Hygge. And it's by an author, a Danish author named Mike Viking. Mike spelled M-E-I-K, Viking spelled W-I-K-I-N-G. And he is actually the founder of a group called the Happiness Research Institute. And his premise is that we have no problem studying the causes and impacts of depression and unhappiness. So why shouldn't we also study the causes and impact of happiness and contentment? And so he was motivated to start looking into this in a more formal way when Denmark was named happiest country in the world, you know, several years running. And so the world started asking Danes, what makes you so happy? And so, you know, to try to really kind of understand that and kind of understand what are the different pieces of that, Mike Viking kind of started this Happiness Research Institute, and then later he has published The Little Book of Hygge and has followed that up with The Little Book of Lykke. So there are some English language publications that he's written that, you know, there are lots of Hygge books that, you know, will have, you know, beautiful photographs and recipes and some, you know, some really fun like seasonal handcrafts or decorations or things like that. There's lots of those. for kind of getting a little deeper about the actually research-based looked at what are these elements, I've really enjoyed his books.
Okay. And there was a comment earlier about Feng Shui, and does it share any similarities with Hygge that you know of?
You know, I have not been a student of Feng Shui, so I can't speak to the, you know, the fundamental kind of philosophies there. But there are certainly, you know, as I understand it, a lot of cultural sympathies, you know, a lot of cultural complements between Danish and Scandinavian culture and aesthetics, and kind of Far Eastern culture and aesthetics. You know, kind of they share a similar minimalist aesthetic. They share a similar interest in connecting to nature and the outdoors, even in indoor environments. You know, they share that same idea that, you know, that consciousness of the space you're in, and that should be a, you know, be the stage for, you know, for human comfort, human interaction, human activity. So I think there are a lot of ways that you could see parallels between the two. I only know the one, so I can't call out the details of both.
Okay, so we have a couple other questions coming in. Is the goal slash purpose of Hygge to have positive feelings that vary, but words like peace, contentment, or calm can be part of it?
Yes, I think all those words can be, you know, can be part of Hygge. You know, and this is where the impossible to translate, you know, comes in, because you can throw in connection, you can throw in mindfulness, you can throw in hospitality. You know, so there's, you know, there's a whole, you know, there's a whole world of vocabulary there that all works together. You know, Hygge is, as I said, it's kind of, you know it when you feel it. You know, that moment of, oh gosh, this was just a really nice evening. You know, uh, that's that's the goal. And I think, you know, I think that we can all agree that that's a really nice feeling to have. And if we can think about how to identify what are the elements that make us feel that way, and how do we seek out those experiences that are best, most likely to lead to that.
Okay. Another question we have here is, since one of the contributors to achieving Hygge is interpersonal connection, can one not achieve the feeling of Hygge alone?
You can absolutely be Hygge alone. Yes, and that's one of the also the thing, that difficult contradiction when we are trying to describe it and explain it and define it using English terms. Part of Hygge can be hospitality and shared connection. Part of Hygge can also be that, you know, that kind of retreat, you know, to yourself, and again, kind of giving yourself permission to just enjoy the things that bring you satisfaction and contentment. um, as I said, that could be reading a book, or doing a handcraft, or baking a pie, or reading poetry, or playing the piano. You know, any of those things where the the act that you are doing, you know, kind of both absorbs your focus and reflects back the satisfaction of that. You know, that's how I see it, as a, you know, Hygge on your own. It's it is that, you know, those activities that allow you really to enjoy that present moment.
Okay. We have another question. Are Danish more utilitarian or minimalist? And I'm guessing, how does that also connect to Hygge?
Um, I'm not quite sure that I necessarily know the distinction between the two terms as you might understand them. Um, I would say Danish are more minimalist, because they still really enjoy luxury items. Like, if you're going to, they might not have 12 scarves, but they will have two, and one of them is cashmere. you know so I don't consider that particularly utilitarian, but more minimalist. So it's quality matters more than quantity, in a lot of kind of Danish design, Danish lifestyle. And it's not that they're opposed to decoration, but that the decoration is integrated into that, the function of those housewares. So, that balance between form and function is one of the hallmarks of Danish design, and you see it up to this day, and whether it's in something as simple as plastic bowls to keep leftovers in the fridge. Well, gosh, they're beautiful and they work really well. And there's nothing extra about them, but that every detail has been considered, every detail has been measured and weighed and evaluated. So I think there is definitely an appreciation for for aesthetics and something beautiful to look at. And there was a wonderful quote um, from a contemporary Danish designer, and I don't I haven't read it for a while, so I'm going to mangle it a little bit. But to work, it does not have to be beautiful, but if it's not beautiful, it won't work. There's this, fundamental connection between beauty and utility in Danish design, and that has been taught for decades, and it continues to be a value for Danish products.
Okay. Yeah, they do have really beautiful stuff in all those books.
Mm-hmm.
One question that I personally have, I'm going to jump in, is what kind of tips do you have for folks who, I imagine a lot of our participants tonight are interested in how to create a sense of hygge in a COVID winter where, you may be with the same four people for months.
Yeah, yeah. We're all facing that challenge, aren't we? And part of it is trying to find, we've either been with the same family group for a really long time, or a very small pod of people, and that's one hygge challenge of trying to keep things, uh, you know, how do you separate yourself from the stress, when you physically can't get away from the people who may be causing the stress. So I can give some examples from my family. I have a young son who's 8 years old, and we have a family dog, and my husband and I have been trying to remodel the house while still living in it. And so the house has been a mess for a couple of years, and we've got to make sure our son still gets to school on time, just all of those daily things of family life. For us, the simple act of having a candle on the kitchen table, and we light it at breakfast and we light it at supper time. And we call it the hygge candle. And it's like, oh no, we forgot the hygge. We've got to light the candle. Someone's got to do it. But it's that part of our routine that again kind of draws us all together. It makes sure that that's part of the act that makes sure that these shared meals are shared meals and not just everyone trying to get through the rest of their day. And so in the morning, it's that shared breakfast to start the day. And in the evening, it's sitting down and kind of recognizing that this is the time that we do all sit together and share that moment. And sometimes, sometimes the changing things up by just like saying, let's have supper in the living room around the coffee table, and change up that routine, but do it together. That's a key thing. I've been thinking a lot too about how how is it possible to experience Hygge through a screen? You
Mhm.
know, like we are like right now. How can that be, you know, either a shared experience with a distant family member or friends who for whatever reason, whether it's COVID or otherwise, we simply can't gather in person. Is it possible to actually, you know, share recipes that you're all going to cook at the same time and then literally have the same food at the same time, you know, and, you know, have that conversation about it, you know, have the same beverage in your cups. You know, these are really tricky things. And I think, you know, it's a challenge for all of us. And I would love to know what other ideas, whatever solutions people are coming up with, especially as we go into the holiday season.
Yeah, definitely. I, for one, have a lot of candles, so I was pumped. I'm like, I'm already there. We do have another kind of question, or I suppose more a comment. So, Huga is a personal state, whether we're alone or with people. It's an inner feeling.
um, yes, yeah, it's an inner feeling, but if you're other with other people, you're not going to experience probably in a group setting. You are probably going to experience Hygge only if everyone else is too. Have you ever you know, been at someone's home and it's a mixed group of guests, and you know, some people are clicking really well and they're having a great conversation, and there's one or two people that just aren't. You know, they either they don't feel comfortable in the conversation, or they just they can't get a word in edgewise. Well, that's not Hygge for anybody. You have not achieved Hygge, you know, if some people sharing that same experience um, haven't got there. And that's where Hygge can be tricky, and why a lot of people, you know, kind of uh, play it safe when, you know, when socializing. You know, if you're going to try to achieve Hygge in a group of people, you kind of want to know that, oh yeah, like he's, you know, he's funny but not dominating, and you know, she's got great stories to tell, and like this would be a great group of people, and everyone will, you know, will gel really well. You know, that's part of the kind of social minefield, I guess, that can be part of that Hygge critique.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
We have another question from Erica. My family does Zoom Huga by having my grandma, who lives in a retirement community and we can't see her in person, mail us the same baked good, usually cookies or some type of muffin. And then on Sunday night, we Zoom together, grandma too, and have a 30-minute to 1 hour chat. And we've been doing it twice a month.
That sounds like a great a great answer to our current challenges. Yeah, that sounds lovely.
Yeah, definitely. And we had another side question about book recommendations for someone who's trying to read more this winter than watch TV. So I'm going to sneak in real quick and plug DMPL's Book Chat, which is a service that we have where you can either allow us to create a bundle for you of 5 books, you know, mystery, romance, whatever, or we can get a little more in depth with it, and you can fill out a form, tell us your likes, your dislikes, and we'll come up with a personalized list for you. And in our follow-up email, I'll be sure to put a link in that for you. But if anyone else has any other recommendations, I'd love to see them. All right. Someone else Zooms with friends 3,000 miles away in California, and we do personal chats during Zoom. I suppose you could have lots of blankets and candles around you when you Zoom with friends who are not with us. Some book recommendations and such. Um, does anyone else have any other questions for Tova before we wrap up? We've got another 10 minutes on the room. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Tova. I think this was an excellent program. I know that I personally really enjoyed it, and I hope all of our patrons did tonight as well. Thanks to all of our patrons. And if you're interested in more DNPL programming, you can find it on our website, dnpl.org, under events. We have a little bit of everything for everyone. And with that, we'll stop the recording.
Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure to be with you this evening.